Michelle. Okay, I think some chairs are coming. So for those of you standing in the back, hang in there. We do have potentially some additional seats coming. So great turnout. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to kind of continue the self-service discussion really with more of a tilt towards automation. And really this notion of, hey, can we do this faster? Can we get customer service done more quickly? That obviously we know has benefits for the customer, but certainly benefits for the business as well in terms of reducing cost, reducing maybe the need for agents and so forth. So that'll be our thrust today. We've got a lineup of speakers here that I want to introduce now. A mix of banks, providers, and experts. So Nick, let's start with you at the end.
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Nick Baak. I'm COO, so I'm responsible for operations within In3. In3 is a Dutch spread payment solution, mainly focused online, but also offline. And within my role, I'm responsible for operations, but also the customer journey, customer experience, and all that kind of things.
Excellent. Let's go.
My name is Danny Kuijverhoven. I'm the head of digital transformation of EMEA for Teleperformance. For the people who don't know Teleperformance, we are the global leader in CX with almost 420,000 people right now. With the company for 11 years. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, and Michel?
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Michel van Roon, and I am Chief Customer Officer at QuandaGo. I won't go too much into detail what QuandaGo is. We're a CX software company, but I'm here more in the fact as a Chief Customer Officer, I get the opportunity to speak to different customers in different countries and different parts of the world, and so very much, to explain kind of like what I hear there, what I see there, what I learn there, and so that's why I'm here today.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to get started actually in a lead up here to automation, but we want to talk a little bit about data first and how critical data is to CX today, but even any automation type efforts you might carry out. So, you know, obviously, unlike years ago in our space where we might have 2 or 3 data sources to bring into our strategy, I call it a tsunami of customer data really coming from all directions, and I think it's a critical component to what we're all doing today. So maybe Nick, starting with you, how is this kind of tsunami of data affecting your overall CX strategy, and then maybe the opportunities it opens up for automation?
Yeah, sure. We are a pretty new company. We're only live like 6 years, so we have started within the age of data. So we are trying to accumulate as much data as we can. So we mainly have an online customer journey, which we generate a lot of data, which we use. But also, for instance, the customer contact center, we use it as an early warning system because, well, let's not go too much into detail of our product, but we have a solution to do spread payments, which is used by consumers, but which is paid by merchants, which are offering our service on their website. So our consumers are not basically our customer, but they are in a way. So people call us, for instance, when goods are not delivered, or if they don't want to pay because they have a dispute with a merchant. And when there's a dispute with a merchant, that's a trigger for us to know, oh, maybe this is going south or it's going bankrupt. So when we see that there are a lot of triggers coming in through phone or by tickets or different channels about a certain merchant, we know we have to do something. We have to stop our service there because within a few days we will probably get a report that they will go insolvent or some kind of things. And that's really helping us to be very on top of it to make sure that our losses are minimized.
Interesting. Danny, what are you seeing from the Teleperformance view, maybe some of your customers on the data front?
Yeah, sure. So obviously in CX, we're data addicts, right? The more data we can get our hands on, the better it is. Especially now when we're in the age of the race of AI. So using all that data to do predictive modeling, if it's predicting the next sale, next action, predicting churn, but even in our own industry, right? So predicting attrition, or data is all we need to come up with all these new different cool modeling. But all the different type of data. So, for instance, look at the interaction analytics. Having the actual voice of the customer right at the palm of your hand, which is great. We started that early on in 2016, and if I look at what we can get from that right now, it's amazing. And especially when we started with interaction analytics, when you can actually you see and hear everything, that all conversations, both voice or non-voice, are happening. I was afraid that a lot of our people would say, this is Big Brother, I'm already being monitored. But if you look at the statistical relevancy of the data that we have now and how we coach our agents, it actually makes them better in their jobs. So the feedback you get from that is amazing. And it's the same with real-time data that we can provide on the screens for these guys right now. So, if you're doing sales, having there an AI algorithm to predict the best offer, it makes them, again, better successful in their job. And yes, I think there's a tsunami of data, and sometimes we want to push out a lot of information at the same time. But there's a lot of new technologies out there. So screen unification, where basically we predict the intent and show the information that they need to see for that specific intent. So a lot of good stuff happening there.
Interesting. How about Michelle, from your view and working with some of our customers on data excellence?
Yeah. So I think a lot of customers, they in a way they struggle with it, but at the same time, as Danny also says, technology helps us in managing data. So there's more data coming in from the customer because you're dealing with multiple channels. Yeah, that's the downside of omni-channel. There's just more information to deal with. You're trying to personalize the interaction, which means you need more data to really understand who is this customer, what do they want, what's their profile, how do I want to deal with them. Yeah, you're trying to do that in a shorter time frame. Yeah, that's challenging. And then in the meantime, you have your AI, you have your conversational analytics and other stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going on. But with a lot of the technology you have, you can actually, the agent typically, let's say in the old days, I would need to say, it deals with 6 or 7 different applications. Today, in a modern environment, there's one. Where that data comes from doesn't really matter. It's something you set up once, because it can be one CRM system, but I think most people in the bigger companies, they realize there is no one CRM system. There's information in 5, 6, or 7 systems. Yeah, but for the agents, it's one. Where it comes from is irrelevant. Yeah, and that's good. And the other nice thing is that with a lot of the data you collect, you can also start to use it outside the contact center. Yeah, some of the customers that we've worked with. Take a bank. We had two financial institutions here before. What's going on? Credit cards. We do credit cards. What do people think of our credit cards? If you really want to know that as an organization, if you want to know what's going on with your product, you basically go sit in your contact center. But you don't have to sit in your contact center today with the new technology. You can actually get the data from the contact center and really understand what are people saying about your product. And you can get in a very condensed fashion, again, all data. Yeah? But those are things that the rest of the organization can also benefit from. Yeah? So on the one side, data I think is a challenge. At the same time, managed well, it's a huge source of strategic information in an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think in that line of thinking and capitalizing on, we have, and we've been hearing a lot about conversational analytics at the event here, and we'll continue to hear more about it. But maybe segueing into automation, there's data everywhere now. We're able to understand meaning and intent from customer conversations better. So how can we then now take this insight and use it to inform maybe automation efforts? Maybe you're uncovering process bottlenecks that the customer is discovering that you can then fix maybe with automation. So Nick, we'll start with you, but how is this maybe feeding into and helping you understand where you can gain efficiencies and potentially automate some of the customer tasks and processes?
Yeah, I think that a good example of the large amount of data and the analysis on a higher level, you can give that feedback to your entire customer journey and see where you can predict the questions that are that you will expect from a customer that you will receive, and make sure that they will never have the question. For instance, when we see a lot of questions coming in about when a next term needs to be paid, we've automated an email flow that sends an email or an SMS to a customer on a specific date, or when we expect it to happen, or somewhere around salary pay date. So sometimes it's just really simple things that you can feedback in your regular processes, but do it based on data to really improve your processes and decrease your bottlenecks. It's I think with automation we always think about very high-end solutions, but I think with the data we have, we can already make our simple basic processes a bit more efficient. That's really helping us.
Danny, we'll go down the line here.
Sure. So, there's a lot of possible with automation technology, right? But just that we don't have to. So, when we sit down with our clients, talk about where we can adopt those things. So, we do an exercise what we call the value interaction matrix, which is basically plotting the intents to how valuable is this intent for you as a company, and how valuable is this intent for you as a customer. So, if there's a lot of value for you as a brand, but there's not a lot of value in that intent for the customer, it's basically what we say simplify. So what can we use to simplify that interaction, make it as easy as possible? For instance, payments. Make it as easy as possible to do that payment. If there's not a lot of value for both, this is where we say eliminate or optimize. So what can we do? This is what we use interaction analytics for a lot. So how do we find those drivers that they're not a lot of value, and what can we do to remove them? If there's a lot of value for you, for the customer, but not a lot of value for you as a brand, this is where we say you should automate, right? So how can we deliver that intent with the highest quality, with the lowest cost? So this is where you see the self-service type of solutions and automation. And where there's a lot of value for both, well, you use people. This is about sales, this is about retention, everything. So that's the high quality. And next to that, I always say, look at what we call the triple C. So the triple C stands for first, put it into context. So sometimes, obviously, you want to have a driver handled by a human, but it could be there's high seasonality. You don't have the people. So you have to automate, because it's better to serve the customer quickly than have them put on hold for an hour. And then, so if you want to sell them something after being on hold an hour, I can tell you, impossible. Then the next one is convenience. So if you can automate to offer your customers convenience, it's something that you should always do. It comes almost natural to us humans to crave convenience. And third, it's customer expectations. So if your customer expectations is that you should be able to serve them through messenger channels, or through chatbots, or through voice bots, or if the customer expectation is there, you do it, because there's so much competitors out there that are offering, and consumers these days have options. So automation is good, but it's not a magic bullet.
Not a magic. And Michel, you have got a story also, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I think automation, a lot of what we've talked about with automation, and also I think in the session before, has been about automation of the interaction. Yeah, and obviously that's an important part. Other part that's important with automation is not so much how do I automate the interaction with the customer, but how do I actually get done what's need to be done within the organization? Yeah, that's another part of I can automate the interaction, but let's say, example that I used before, credit card. Yeah, so if, yes, I can automate the request of the credit card, great, but if then it takes me 6 weeks to get the credit card out of the door, yeah, there's still parts of the automation that's not working. Yeah, so automation is really, how do you get, how do you get the end-to-end automation? How do you get that working? How do you get the rest of your organization, which is typically organized in silos, how do you manage those silos? Because you don't want to break them down, because they're there for a reason that creates efficiency. But you want to make them transparent from a customer process perspective, that you can run through those silos within as well as outside your organization. A lot of organizations have certain units that are outsourced, but you want to be able to manage them in the right way as if you're one company. Yeah, so that part of automation is I think is important as well. The other side with automation, and again, I think there's a lot of value in automation. It depends a little bit on the industry you're in, but some industry, one of the challenges they have is that the actual touch points they have with their customer are getting less. Yeah, banking. How often does a bank see their customer? So those few moments you still have to interact with your customer, do you want to automate those away? Or do you actually want to take the time? And yeah, so the question there is, and that's what Danny was leading to as well, is what's the nature of the interaction? Does the agent add value? If they do, let them spend the time. If they don't, automate it. The customer's not waiting, the agent's not waiting for it. Yeah, so it's kind of like that balance you need to find there as well.
Yeah, we're seeing also, we have an online music provider customer, and they were noticing a lot of calls just coming in to ask for the shipping date. When is my musical instrument going to arrive? And after a while, they realized they could automate these requests, and their agents, in fact, most were musicians, and they actually like to get on the phone and coach people and talk about the instruments and give them advice and have very high-value human interactions and offloading, those simple requests. So the upside, and we talked about it before, it had a real positive impact on the agent experience as well, and allowed them really to do what they wanted to do and make more human connections with customers. So yes, you're automating things, but you're not sacrificing. If anything, you're maybe opening up some opportunities to make better human connections. So let's keep moving here. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I think, some lessons learned like we did last time. Automation is newer maybe than self-service to many of us, and I think as we explore these opportunities, I want to talk about the future in the closing, but let's talk a little bit about maybe some words of wisdom and lessons you've learned working with your environments or your customers on the automation front. Nick, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that when you start automating things, there's still somewhere an agent which is also communicating with your customers, and you should have a good 360 view, because otherwise, when an agent is really speaking to a customer, it can happen that an automatic email or some other sort of communication has already been sent out. And we ran into that we didn't have a complete view because we've been adding new automation on a very high tempo that we didn't include it in the view yet. And then you see that a lot of friction coming at the agents, and that's where you don't want to have a friction, because that's where you want to have a good conversation, and you really want to help people. So it's good to always see the impact of your automation and what it's triggering with your customers. We've also been sending out emails, for instance, as reminders. All very simple automation things in our customer journey. But the result was that people started calling that they were like angry because we were spamming them, telling them to pay. In the end, they needed to pay, but they received like 3 emails in 5 days. Well, that was a bit too much. So it's good to do a pilot, validate, and don't automate too much, because in the end you're still dealing with humans, and they have some sort of expectations on that.
Yeah, Danny, maybe also in this context, some use cases. I mean, you're seeing more than most, but maybe some help on IDing maybe tasks that are ripe for automation would be valuable.
Yeah, sure. So I think the role of the customer service representative is becoming more and more complex, right? So I think in the day of age we're living in, mankind is going from working with your hands to working with your head, with now working with your heart. So when we look at automation, we try to remove as much repetitive work for our people as possible, right? So not only to reduce handle times, which is a cost reduction, but also to make their mind clear to focus on the conversation they're having, right? So people with high emotional intelligence having the best conversation to get to the best customer satisfaction. And how do you do that? I think, again, we're in a rise of automation with robot process automation, robot desktop automation. So we're actually trying to remove the robot from our people, right? All that repetitive work. And there's so many use cases out there, and people tend to do this. You know, you sit next to one of your best agents because they're most knowledgeable. But the thing is, you can automate against the best agent, right? They click before the screen is even there because they know it's going to be there. The benefits is in your 90-day tenure, you new people, they're still struggling. And like I said, the job is becoming really complex, and I really respect these people that, again, we're in a generation now that are not that that's comfortable on the phone. My daughter never calls me; they send me WhatsApp. So if she would join a teleperformance and she would have a lot of conversation on the phone, it will be a lot new to her. So teaching her all those new different skills, and then also have to reminding, again, what you were mentioning, all these different software that's out there where they have to click through all that journey. It's really complex, and you see a high dropout rate because of that reason, because they can't be successful in their work, and nobody wants to be a failure. So being able to do screen unification based on this robot desktop automation or robot process automation and making their life easier just with one single screen, and being able to focus on the conversation and give the best service to the customer, I think there's the biggest opportunity right now in customer experience. So, making sure that your people are set up to be successful.
Thanks for that. Michel, maybe opportunities, examples you've seen?
Yeah, maybe not so much the examples. I think the best practices in a way is a little bit what we've seen. First of all, I think what we've seen in best practice is that automation, it's not a project. It's not something you do once. It's a continuous journey. It's also the journey. There is no end point. Yeah? You continue, and there's other things and other processes. So it's nearly more kind of like a mindset and an approach that you need to continue to follow than just one project with a beginning and an end. Yeah. And the other thing that we've seen very often is the challenge in trying to do too much too quickly. Yeah, so it's nearly don't boil the ocean. Yeah, don't start too big. Yeah, but then again, it's a continuous thing. I think those are two things that we've seen with a lot of customers, a lot of projects. Is those two.
Let's maybe take a longer view, maybe than contact center automation. But at QuandaGo, we often say look for automation opportunities really across the customer journey. So there may be interactions happening in the contact center that require maybe an approval or some action from another part of the business. Maybe it's a payment arrangement that the accounts payable department needs to receive. That typically previously might have been a live interaction. Those things can now be triggered in the back office, even automated, and allowing that agent to finish up that interaction in the moment versus waiting, having any lapse in approval needed. So maybe Nick, starting with you, are you starting to see then more automation opportunities, let's say in other parts of the business than that frontline customer service, and do you see more of that in the future?
Like I said before, we are just a new company, so I think our entire focus has been always since the beginning to have everything as automated as much as possible. And I think, to be frank, I think our contact center is the least automated part of our business. So that's why it's a very interesting thing to get that to the next level as well. But for instance, when you use our service, I think 95% of our customers will never have contact with us, and they just do regular payments and will be very effective and efficient. But we do see that when we have a contact through an agent, there's a lot of things we should do afterwards. And what we see now is indeed what you're saying, is that we are automating like everything else in the process. So, okay, let's not have an agent send an email or a request, but just prepare a simple task or a button to click on it, and that will trigger a workflow, which will automatically end up with finance or somewhere else in the business. So that's what we definitely see happening. And what we also see is way more analytics, way more data analysis, and making sure you have that data almost real time with the agent. That can be really helpful, because having a 360 view can be a bit overwhelming, because there's a lot of different emails, different contacts from one customer. But okay, what does that say? What does that mean? Is this an angry customer? Is this a happy customer? Is it a first-time customer? All these kind of things should be brought together and be put into one overview for the agent. And I think in the future we can really make steps there to really make it easier and to feel almost through AI and all these new technologies, but what is the mood of the customer on the line? I think that's some things we can definitely expect, and it will be really, really helpful.
How about you, Danny? Across the customer journey, so let's maybe get out of the contact center for a few minutes
sure.
if we can.
So obviously we also have a big enterprise behind the operations. So we started again all the administrative work that we're doing for HR admin, finance admin, doing automation there, using the same technology to remove the repetitiveness out of the work for the people. I think there are very exciting projects now with AI and data. So what can we do on recruitment? We're in the biggest verge of a shortage of people across Europe. So everything we can do to help us help recruitment, from using automation to scrape CVs off the job boards, having AI algorithms match on which ones are most likely to convert to join our company. There's a lot of those things going on right now in automation. So we eat our own dog food.
Yeah. I think let me kick it over to you, Michel. Maybe just give your view.
Yeah, so I think outside the contact center, I think one of the interesting things what you see today with some of the technology we use is, and a lot of the customers and a lot of you probably use as well, with things like conversational analytics, is that you really start to get a feel for where's the friction in the customer journey. But the friction isn't in the contact center part. The friction is somewhere else in the organization, somewhere else in the business processes. And those are things that you then can actually fix in other areas, and that's where automation then helps. An example, one of the customers, a retail company, most retail customers are private individuals, so they don't need an invoice. Some of them, however, are professionals. They do need an invoice. And then all of a sudden, and that was months, the process they have to send out invoices for professional customers is broken. The email goes out, but there's no attachment. And they just go on chipping out and dealing with those individual calls, but nobody actually looks at the whole process, because nobody sees that until you start looking at conversational analytics and you start seeing which processes are broken and why, and that's actually where you can start fixing things upstream. So that's why that I think the good Dutch word is wisselwerking. So the balance between those two. There's a lot of information you get on one end to fix things on the other hand, and vice versa. And that's crucial.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to wrap it up. I do want to maybe allow for a question or two. One? No? No questions. You can come up and talk to us. The takeaway, I think, look across that end-to-end journey, understand your data, look for those tasks that you can, repetitive tasks that you can automate easy. And then I would say, of course you want to consider the customer experience, but there's a huge impact on the agent experience and what you can do there, even across the journey. So that's it. I thank you for attending. I thank our speakers. If you have any questions, come see us. We'll be hanging around here for a bit, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you very much.